Welcome to the Industrial Talk Podcast with Scott Mackenzie. Scott is a passionate industry professional dedicated to transferring cutting-edge, industry-focused innovations and trends while highlighting the men and women who keep the world moving. So put on your hard hat, grab your work boots, and let's...
All right, once again, welcome to Industrial Talk. Thank you very much for joining the number one industrial-related podcast that celebrates you industrial professionals all around the world. Yes, we are global. That celebrates you because you're bold, you're brave, you dare greatly, you innovate, you collaborate, you are always solving other people's challenges. That's why we celebrate you on Industrial Talk. Great conversation. Something that's near and dear to my heart. Danny Gonzales, Industrial Sage is the organization, and we're going to be talking about, well, something that you need to do, and that is storytelling. That is being able to create the content that says, hey, we're out here, and this is what we do. You're just going to have to get out of your comfort zone. So let's get cracking. As you can tell, Industrial Talk, we're all about that storytelling. We're always about trying to create this platform that helps you in your work, in what you do from an industrial perspective, and tell that story. And tell that story in such a way that is engaging. I just want to make sure you understand you're cool. You are cool. What you do has meaning. You need to tell that story. And here's the plug. Just go out to Industrial Talk, click connect, and you want to have a conversation with me? Easy peasy. You'll have a conversation with me. Because more than ever, I believe more than ever, that one, you need to succeed. To do that, you have to be just bold. You're just going to have to be bold. You're going to have to be radical. Not in a negative sense. Don't get me, go down that road. Radical in the way you think, in the way you are able to communicate what you do, and then be able to have that story resonate with who you're talking to. Plus, and I think this is huge, is to be able to tell that story that motivates and inspires the next generation of industrial leaders. It's a lot, but I think you can handle it. And I'm just telling you right now, you need to do it. And if I can do it, and if you come to me and you say, Scott, I just don't like to express myself or whatever it might be, it's going to fall on deaf ears, because if I can do it, you can do it. And you need to do it for the sake of industry. You just need to do it. So, brings me to Danny Gonzales, Industrial Sage. They create compelling video productions that truly tells that story, that industrial, that manufacturing story. And you know what? It's just cool stuff. What you do is important, and it needs to be told. I keep harping on it. I think you guys are heroes. I think what you do needs to be appreciated, elevated, and recognized for what it is, and that means you guys are doing incredible work out there. You just are. All right, let's get on with the conversation. Danny is his name. Gonzales is his last name. Industrial Sage is the company. And again, I have all his contact information, everything out there. So, if you reach out, make it happen, Captain. So here's Danny. Danny, welcome to Industrial Talk. How are you doing? Thank you very much for finding time in your busy schedule to be on this platform. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, and thank you so much for the opportunity to come on and to share all things industrial. I'm just a little excited about it.
Shut the front door. I know I am. And we're going to be talking about something that's near and dear to my heart, and that's being able to tell that story from an industrial perspective and help companies do that and succeed. I think that they're connected. Yeah, whatever how you find success, they're connected. But before we get into that conversation, Danny, just give us a little 411 on who Danny is.
That's a good question. I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm a little bit older these days, so I'm getting there. But
don't go the old route. You have a head of hair.
I didn't say old. Right. I said older, but it's all good.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, I started a video production company several years ago called Optimum Productions. Actually started it because of I fell in love with video and storytelling when I was a missionary living in Mexico 20-something years ago, 25 years ago, and came back to the States and was like, this is super cool. I think I want to do this. Ended up getting a degree in accounting because that makes sense. And
lines right up with videos.
It's very, very aligned. And so I did that. People think, as a side, that it's very boring and it's not creative. Accounting is incredibly creative. And I actually found that if I didn't channel that creativity, I'd find myself in jail. So I figured, okay, let's really, move it to something that might be a little bit more positive. But there's storytelling even in the numbers. So, but anyways, I digress. We started this video production company back in 2007 and focused on B2B, doing a lot of storytelling and all kinds of different content. And then we started this thing called Industrial Sage back in 2017. And that was really targeted towards the manufacturing and industrial space. And really, the mission and the goal is to change that perception that you and I know very well that's out there, that people think it's dirty, it's grimy, it's not innovative, it's stodgy. What is going on? And that people are dead wrong. There's amazing things that are going on if you actually look, and it doesn't take very long to look. So I think we have a branding and a marketing problem in the space. And the answer to that, from my opinion, is great storytelling to really show what actually is going on and how it impacts your life thousands upon thousands of times per day.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And yeah, it's a source of frustration for me because I can geek out on all things industry, manufacturing. Mm-hmm. I don't know about me, but I really like it. All right. And I want people to like it. And therefore, I'm going to be an advocate for people to like it because I believe that it's more important today than it has ever been, because
100% agree.
Yeah, if we're trying to reshore and nearshore and do shore and all that shore, and we need people, and if we need people, we need to be able to inspire those individuals to say, absolutely, this is the profession for me. 100%. So let's go down. I like Industrial Sage. It talks about wisdom. Is that why you grabbed it?
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially kind of how we grabbed it. Yeah,
because it does. I always I love talking to individuals that have that wisdom, that sage insight, just because I think it goes beyond the superficial. It goes into the heart, the mind, the wisdom component. So with that, take us through your mission, your purpose is to be able to help manufacturers, industry. Let's just go industry. Tell their story. How do you take us through that?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of different ways of doing that, and storytelling is a little ubiquitous, right? There's several different ways of doing that and using storytelling. Given that my background is video, that's sort of the natural starting point. But even video is super ubiquitous, right? So what we're doing right now, a podcast recording, leveraging video versus doing news content, or doing mini doc series. These are all different channels and different ways that we are telling the manufacturing story. So, for example, we have a bi-weekly show that we put on that has headlines. So we're talking about what's going on in the industry. We'll put that out. We have several other podcasts similar to like what you're doing here, talking about different things. One of them is talking about digital transformation, automation, what smart manufacturing looks like inside the four walls, how to do that, talking about stories about where implementations have gone right, where they've gone wrong, to really help to sort of inspire what to do and how to do that. To mini docs. I love doing documentary film type work. So we've several different shows that we've put on, like Industries of the Future, which Schneider Electric has been a big partner with for the last several years. And it's a really cool deep dive going into these industries, understanding the challenges that the world may have, or the challenges that their customers have, and how they're leveraging technology to solve that. And we go into some really interesting things like recycling of tires and what the circular economies that are spinning off from there. So we've got another one called American Makers that we just launched a few months ago, that is going in talking about domestic manufacturing and what's going on. And I think really at the core, it's continuing to kind of pull back the layers of the onion that manufacturing is, because it's so deep, it's so nuanced. And our audience ranges from executive to frontline worker and sort of everything in between.
And I've been noodling on this particular topic, and because of what the workforce, we talk about workforce, the necessity to properly train these individuals to fill these roles, this silver tsunami that leaves. How do we fill these roles? You can only automate so much. You can only use AI so much. You still need people, and you need those people to be successful and to create that business that is resilient. Got it. Thumbs up. But I believe, and I think, and I want to get your opinion about it. I've been thinking about, how do you, in this world, in this industrial world, communicate that radical passion? Radical in a positive sense, not radical in the negative sense. Radical, so that you can truly hammer and hit the hearts of the future workforce.
Yeah, I think there's I hate to keep going back and harping on storytelling, but maybe just give an example, of what that means and what that looks like. I think we could talk about it all day, but it's like in sales. It's really hard to sell something you can't see. When you see it, then you can visualize it, and then you can say, I got it. And we are selling to the next generation why manufacturing is a core area that you need to be focusing on for your career, why there's great potential. And so I think when we show, the impact of work and what people are doing, and we're able to tie purpose back to what they're doing, I think we have a huge opportunity. I'll give a story. We lost an employee about a year ago to the mission, right? And I think it's a win. It's a great win. But a young guy, he was 23, 4, 5, and he was working on the podcast, working on some of the shows that we've had, wasn't as familiar with the manufacturing space. And after about a year was like, hey, I want to go into programming, or I am going into programming. I've been moonlighting and taking these classes early in the morning, and I really want to get in. I want to get up to snuff. I want to get into manufacturing because I see how I could solve a lot of the problems that are going on. And you're right. There's like this whole world that I had no idea about, and it's super cool. And I think that is part of what that is just show people what is going on, and really help to drive in that purpose to say, wow, I have meaning. Like what I'm doing is very meaningful. The work that I'm doing is helping to solve a world problem that we have. And it's not just, just something that I'm doing and whatever, and I get a paycheck. It's, wow, there's real meaning to this. I think that's a key piece.
You got to keep at it. You got to keep pumping out that information that this is meaningful work. This has purpose. This transforms lives. And you have to keep at it each and every day, because the human nature is that we just sort of fall into the day-to-day, the ditch digging, right? The salt mine work, right?
Sure.
And we forget that what industry does is truly transformative.
Absolutely.
How do you maintain that level of energy from a business perspective. That is an executive imperative that they have to constantly make sure that there's that energy, that life that is communicated and represented.
Well, that's a great question. I think the word that you hit was communication. You said communicating. So one of the things that we do a lot, even over an Optimum, we don't necessarily do this a whole lot of in Industrial Sage, but internal corporate communications is huge. And I think, a lot of people talk about digital transformation and bringing in automation, robotics, AI, whatever, what have you. If you don't have a culture that is willing to change, wanting to change, having a culture of innovation, that's not going to go over really well. And I think the number one step is through communication through leadership, like you were mentioning. How do you keep up that energy and you transmit that? I really do think that to have a foster of innovation, foster that environment of change and innovation has to come through from the top, saying this is super important and this is why we're going to do that. And it's interesting. We see that very clearly. We have a lot of clients that are not actually in the manufacturing space over at Optimum. We have a nice, beautiful studio here, and we'll have whole executive teams will come in, C-suite, and you can tell the leaders that really value it versus the ones that don't. And you can see tangibly the response from employees. We'll actually see how many are engaging with questions and responding with emojis or polls. The engaged audience, 100 times you're seeing when you've got that leadership that is taking that charge. Communication's important. They're making it a priority, and they're getting their team around it to continue to talk about it and sort of reinvest and double down in that communication strategy.
But it's more than just communicating verbally. Is there that physical communication where that leader has to be out on the floor, whatever it might be?
100%.
Hey, you're doing a great job. Karen, wonderful. You're here. Whatever the
100%.
There's that personal component. And I think, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, as we continue down this road, there is this impetus behind wanting to separate that human component. And I'm here to tell you, because of AI, because of automation, because of all of the tools that are out there, I'm here to say that it's even more incumbent upon those leaders to create that human-to-human contact.
Oh, I agree 100%. I think there's a lot of trepidation, a lot of uncertainty about AI. I mean, you would always hear the notion, automate before AI, but automation and robotics is coming. It's going to take over my job and all this stuff. What's that going to do to the worker? I think with the acceleration of AI, that I think it's an exciting time, but I also think that there's a lot of hype and there's a lot of things that can go wrong with it very easily. And in particular, I think where you have organizations that may say, "Hey, we think we can go ahead and just we're gonna replace all these people, and it's going to be amazing, and we're just going to have all these systems that are going to replace all these things." That's not true. I mean, the reality of it is, even as much as you would want to do that, you can't. And I think, to your point, it is going to be very important to make sure that you still have that interaction. There's a theory going around. I work with a lot of different event production companies, and they're putting on big events and whatnot. And they have a theory saying, we think that in-person events are actually going to skyrocket, like the need for that, over the next 2 to 3 years, because of exactly what you're talking about. People are going to be so, locked down on their whatever that is, their tablet, their whatever their process is, their computer, that the need to be able to have more face-to-face, like real interaction with people is going to go up. And I think we largely saw that with COVID, right? With all the work from home, and people are just like, I can't do this anymore. I got to talk to people. I need to see people. Right. And I think you're right. We're going to see the same thing.
I agree with you 100%. And I think that as an executive, as a leader, yes, I got to tell that story. I've got to communicate. I got to get out of my comfort zone, because this is the way we've always done it. We're a business that has 30, 35, 40 years, whatever, and this is the way we've always done it. That thought process has to change, and you have to put yourself out and beyond that, you also, I believe, in that effort to say, hey, we're trying to be more efficient, we're trying to be more automated, we're trying to use the tools of the technology that is available. That has, I think, a negative force on the culture of the organization, just because everybody's saying, oh, they're trying to get rid of me, they're trying to whatever, it's all this.
Sure.
Well, it's just more and more, along with what you're saying, that ability to be able to tell your story from the top down, all around, is so vital. And we're not getting rid of the human side. Nope.
Right. I'll add, I think you mentioned, we were talking about communication and making sure that we're having that from the top down, but also the other piece about getting actually like on the floor and being there and being present. I think that the other side to that, like you mentioned, is words are great, but talk is cheap. So we really want to see put those actions, like those words into action. When people start seeing that, that's when you're like, okay. And I think that where we see failed implementations of bringing in new technology is when the frontline worker, whoever's going to be affected, is not part of that process, particularly in saying, hey, how can we fix this process? Let's bring you into that. Where are you seeing the choking points? Where are you seeing areas that we could be better? And then you have a little bit of that feedback loop. We're working on a project right now with a client that I can't say, but they piloted this. Yeah, it's Acme. It's Acme company. Yep. And they have a very successful plan where they piloted this. They have an intake, the ability to be able to pull in feedback from frontline workers and saying, hey, how can, what are the things that are like annoying you? What are the things that are causing problems for you and therefore causing problems in the line versus it's just an efficiency plane, right? And when you start getting people aligned on that, the feedback's been incredible and they've responded to those changes. And the employees are like, wow, we feel heard. They actually, not only did we, it's not like here's the suggestion box, put it in there. And, we all know where all the suggestions go from the suggestion box. This was real. They actually implemented those changes. And now as a result, they're seeing a drastic reduction in turnover. So those retention rates are much stronger there. And then they're also seeing a higher throughput capacity because people feel empowered to make changes.
Follow through. They're actually doing it. It's not words. It's not something that like we all get emails, right? Yeah. And we all look at our social posts and we just, we're numb to it, right? Nothing really pops out. And the same thing can exist within an organization where it's like, it's just hype. It has no real value. I'm going to ignore it. But I think you're touching upon something that I believe in my heart is the key to success, is the inspiration of your workers and bringing them into the decision-making process and then following through. Key. I'll give you an example. I'm fascinated, and I really am fascinated by SpaceX. And the reason I'm fascinated by SpaceX is that everyone, from what I can tell, because it's, I'm watching it, right?
Yeah.
Everybody is just driven by that purpose. That SpaceX purpose. And you see the energy. And it's all being driven. Yeah, you don't see old guys like me, right? You see all these young, energetic individuals that are rowing in the same direction. And it's inspiring. And it propels companies. If you crack that, you've got something very special. Something
absolutely. And Scott, I wouldn't shortchange yourself. There's a lot of passion, a lot of energy that I'm seeing from you here. So,
no, I appreciate that. But you agree? I think that there is. That's the nugget of success. Everybody, and I hear it, that there's some frustration with the workforce. There's this work ethics, whatever it might be. I'm here to tell you, if you can identify that purpose that motivates these. That's next level thinking.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
Yeah. All right. With all that said, and I think we've touched upon it, but I want to hear you say it. What are the roadblocks to do this? Why? What is it? What is it?
There's a lot of roadblocks. And I think a couple different things are, I think we talked a little bit before how talk can be cheap. I think when you start, this is where the accounting comes in, right? This is from that previous conversation.
Yeah.
Or the background. And I'm extremely susceptible to this myself. I think you start looking at things on paper and trying to tie that ROI back to what you're putting. Sometimes there's not an immediate ROI, or this needs to fall into a little bit of an R&D land, and it's not the path isn't 100% clear, or the connection isn't saying, I make an investment of X and the return is going to be on Y in this time frame. I think that's number one. Number two, quite honestly, and this depends on the size of the organization, right? You're a small, $1 or $2 million shop versus a 20 million versus a 3, 5, $10 billion manufacturer. I think the bigger ones you get, the more bureaucracy that's involved is a big stumbling block. I think, to be quite honest with you, that we look at decision making in quarters. Plans aren't made over 5 years or 10 years anymore, because incentives, executive incentives from a compensation standpoint are, hey, what's the EPS for this quarter or this year? Yeah. So I'm making very short-term decisions that have a short-term impact that could be hurting us long-term. And I think that is where you start seeing big problems. We're like, we want to do this culture thing, but that's going to take a long time. And that's a long strategy and a long investment.
Yeah.
I may be out of here, and not to harp on, private equity companies and whatnot, but there's a reason why, sometimes that kind of comes in, and there's a little bit of we're going to start squeezing margin, and we just human capital. We're going to, look at that, and we're going to start cutting, because that's going to help make our margins better in the short term. So,
yeah. I agree with you, sadly, but I do agree with you 100%. And it's been a reality in business for a long time. I think it has to change. I think it's slowly changing. Companies that I believe truly are successful are beginning to recognize that. I think, because we live in this world, whatever this world is, I think it's about stop overthinking that message, stop, and move with speed, and then be able to say, tell that story, tell it with a sense of urgency, tell it with energy and passion. And I think, and don't worry about the ums and and be introspective so much. Go, move, step forward, make it happen, and do it again, and then again, and then again. Yeah,
absolutely. No, you couldn't agree more.
You can tell I've thought about this a couple of times.
Once or twice. That's what I'm picking up on. Yeah.
I'll be walking around and I'm going, hey, I got to think about that. But it is outside, to wrap it up, outside of the fact that manufacturing is cool, and every element associated with industry is cool. And if you start to begin to hone in on that coolness, there's success. How do people get a hold of you, Danny? What's the best way? They're saying, hey, I want this. I want the Industrial Sage to help me out.
Well, you can check me out on LinkedIn. I'm fairly active there. You can send me a message there, but also just come visit our website, industrialsage.com. There's all kinds of content. You can subscribe to all the things. And then there's contact us information there. So would love to chat.
Outstanding. You are absolutely wonderful. Love the topic. Can go on and on and on. I think you're on to something very special and very, very helpful for the industry. Think about it. You're wonderful. Thank you, Danny, for being on Industrial Talk.
Hey, thanks for having me on here and being able to share the magnificence that manufacturing and industrial space is.
Yes. All right. We're going to have all the contact information for Danny out on Industrial Talk. So reach out. This is a must connect individual. You will not be disappointed. All right. We're going to wrap it up on the other side. Stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.
Oh, Danny boy, Danny Gonzales. That was a great conversation. You can tell I get fired up. I have all my notes here, right down here. And I remember having the conversations and being able to just scribble it down and then be able to ask the question, because it is so important. We here at Industrial Talk will do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes to help you succeed. Tell your story. So you just need to get out of that comfort zone. Just do it. You have people like Danny and Industrial Sage that'll help make that process easy. Or you just come out to Industrial Talk and we'll just have this conversation just like this. It's nothing big. You come over to my house. Yeah, it'll be just like that. All right, be bold. Be brave. Dare greatly. Hang out with Danny. Hang out with Team Industrial Stage, and you will be changing the world. We're going to have another great conversation shortly, so stay tuned.